mysterious death curse washes over the land, driven by a powerful artifact known as the Soulmonger. 4 would-be heroes have been sent to the jungles of Chult to destroy the cause of this terrible affliction. Vale, the half-elven paladin who's just now learning of his divinely granted powers. Ubo, the total monk from a distant land who's as quick with his wit as he is with his staff. Brilinya, Aasimar warlock sent on this quest by her temple, discovering herself in this strange new land. And gunslinger Cole, tiefling artificer and archaeologist who may just dig up more than she bargained for. This motley band of adventurers must work together to brave the poisonous plants, venomous monsters, thundering dinosaurs, and rotting undead of the jungle. Join the omnipotent dungeon master Jake for mini-terrain domain to see if our heroes can find the Soulmonger, uncover the deeper mysteries of Chult, and free the world from the death curse. Welcome to the jungle. Welcome to Chult of Personality.
Hey internets, it's Jake from Mini Terrain Domain, and this is Sacrifices, Chult of Personality, Tomb of Annihilation campaign episode. Can you believe it? This is episode number 60. This is our 60th session of playing Tomb of Annihilation. I think it's like maybe 15 for Kaeryn. But Tomb of Annihilation campaign that has been going on for the last 2 years and like 2 months. But how soon will it end? I guess it will just depend on the choices these characters continue to make. We'll touch up on the recap in just a moment. A couple of really quick announcements. First off, domain dice. If you look down below me, you'll see 10 domain devils. Those are a way that you, the audience, can participate by cheering 500 bits, tipping $5, or excuse me, subscribing helps, raids, all those sorts of things, and it is a way that the players can use these domain dice and re-roll a d20 roll and take the new roll, or they can spend a couple and make me re-roll. All the way up to spending 5 of them to turn a hit into a super crit. That's an automatic double max damage to an enemy that they are battling. If you need more information about how the domain dice work, you can look at the scroll down below, or you can simply type !domain dice in the chat, and the little menu will pop up for that. Speaking of chat commands, if you type !Jasper in the chat, you will see that there is a link to an organization called Jasper's Game Day that I've partnered with, that they do wonderful work through tabletop gaming, raising awareness of and trying to prevent teen suicide or suicide in general. It was founded a couple of years ago right here in my home state of Michigan by a wonderful young person by the name of Fenway Jones. And since then, I have participated in the stream, or rather the Jasper's Game Day last year and the Jasper Stream Week that we hosted last year. I will be at Jasper's Game Day on May 2nd over near Detroit. And we will be doing the stream week again this year. You'll want to stay tuned for information on that. In the meantime, if you want to support this organization, you can click on that link. Any money you donate goes directly to help fund crisis centers around the country. Mental health and suicide awareness is an important message of this channel, which is why you will continue to hear things about that, such as coffee. Wait, what? Coffee? Yes, that's right, coffee. You can type !, or if you can actually see the keyboard, for some reason my exclamation point won't work. There we go. ! Coffee in the chat. And that is a link where you can purchase Metadare roast coffee that is a medium Brazilian and Peruvian roast coffee that is absolutely delicious. I love it. I'm out. I need to get some more. For every 12-ounce bag you purchase through the link that takes you to Initiative Coffee Company, $3 of your purchase will go directly to Jasper's Game Day as part of Initiative Coffee Company's Help Action. We are very pleased to be partnered with them on this. Again, on that same message, I will never stop saying this to anybody who needs to hear it, whether you're hearing it live in the audience now or later listening to the VOD. You matter. You are important. And whether you believe it or not, your presence on this earth makes a difference. But it can be a struggle sometimes. And if you find yourself in that predicament at any point during any of the Mini Terrain Domain live streams, you can type !help, and a variety of helpful information will pop up. Some of which, or rather all of which, is also going along the scroll continuously during the stream. You can reach out in the United States to the National Suicide Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255. If you are a veteran, you can type the number 1 after that, and you will be taken to a veteran specialist. Trained professionals are standing by at that number. Or if you prefer, you can dial or text 741-741. In Canada, you can also text through the crisis text line by texting the word connect to speak to somebody in English, or the word parlay to speak to somebody in French. And that text number is 686-868. Or if you'd rather talk to a counselor, you can call the Canada Suicide Prevention Services, and they have operators available, or not operators, counselors, available in who speak English or French. That number is available toll-free, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at 1-833-456-4566. If you are one of our many friends who are not located in the United States or Canada, you can go to the link at opencounseling.com/suicide-hotlines. Or you can click the link in the chat there, and that will take you to a resource page with all of the phone numbers and text lines for the countries that have them available around the world. Again, do not hesitate to use those resources if you need them. There's nothing to be ashamed about when it comes to mental health. I'm actually looking forward to my appointment with my therapist on Tuesday, because I haven't been in a couple weeks, and it has been an immense help to me just having somebody to process things with. So please seek that help. All right, I think that's it. If you stick around all the way to the end, we'll have some announcements about some upcoming shows and a couple of special events coming up as well. In the meantime, I think everybody wants to get into this, playing some Dungeons and Dragons. I tried really hard to come up with a football-related pun for tonight's episode, but I thought it would only be good for this particular day, and I didn't want to get hit with some kind of lawsuit for, using a word that I'm not supposed to use because it's officially licensed. So, or copywritten or trademarked or whatever. So, instead, tonight's episode is called Sacrifices. The first sacrifice was paid at the end of last week's session. These adventurers have been continuing to make their way through the maniacal and torturous tomb of the 9 gods created by the Archlich Serac. Supposedly, this is where the Soulmonger, the source of the death curse that has been plaguing the realms, this is where it can be found. And they are continuing to clear level after level of the dungeon, encountering the spirits of the aforementioned trickster gods. They've encountered 6 of them so far. Proceeding into the 4th level, known as the Chambers of Horror, they ventured down a hallway and found themselves face to face with an ornate mirror affixed to the wall. Very quickly, Brilinya was sucked into the mirror, vanishing from sight. The others were contemplating whether or not they should break the mirror and free her. And, excuse me, they did not do that. Instead, while inside, Brilinya remembered that she had seen an illustration of this mirror and had seen some words written near it in one of the journals they pilfered from an office a couple levels up. And realizing that they were keywords to activate and deactivate the mirror, she deactivated it and set a cell number, releasing a poor Chultan merchant who had apparently been trapped in the mirror for about 100 years. Though he knew not what the fate of everybody was. He knew that it had been torturous, that he had spent all that time in the mirror, unable to eat, sleep, or anything but just witness the passage of time. Fortunately for Brilinya, she was trapped in cell number 2 as she was methodically going through and deactivating the cells, and she freed herself. They opted not to investigate the rest of the containment of the mirror, took their new companion to a safe spot, the only safe spot they found in the entirety of this dungeon, a sort of engineer's escape, a small 10-foot cubic room where they set him up with rations and blankets and told him to wait for them. Continuing down the hall, they found a door in which they had to mimic the painted figure on it, a masked figure who wore a mask of stars, holding up its left hand. They mimicked it and found their way inside through a small maze. They encountered something that they had actually, at least Qualu, Vale, and Brilinya had been told to look for by the nightmare speaker of the Yontif and Thaza, the black opal crown. Immediately upon removing it from its pedestals, the stone doors slammed shut, and 2 undead creatures known as Bodaks crawled unseen from the mouth of one of these green devil faces that permeate this dungeon. Looking into its eyes, Brilinya was almost immediately brought to the brink of death. But these Bodaks proved to be no match for these adventurers and were quickly dispatched, and Brilinya was resuscitated. Or actually, I believe you used your ability that kept you from falling all the way, right? Or did you? Yeah. But was brought definitely to the brink of death. They discovered that once the Bodaks were gone, this small room that appeared to be symmetrical, both north to south and east to west, had only one other door, and both doors had a painted figure upon it. One in which its right arm was raised, but that right arm was severed at the elbow. Strangely, Qualu, Brilinya, and Vale fought over who would be the one to sacrifice their limb, while Taliel watched from a safe distance, not offering her own arm. It was very close as they wrestled and tussled, resulting in Vale thrusting his right arm up to the elbow into the open mouth of the green devil face, the sphere of annihilation, removing his arm to immense pain. Those of you who may have watched, we have since made up for a mistake in which we did not apply the 4d10 of force damage that Vale also received from that, as well as some psychic damage and slashing damage. So Vale took a pretty good chunk of damage from that. Passed out, had a vision of speaking to the to his pledged god of the ancients, Ubtao, who basically told him, you're on the right path, man. Keep on it. And by the way, you're about to wake up and this is going to hurt like a son of a bitch. And that is where we are picking up as Vale is clutched in the arms of Brilinya, who had rapidly applied some, I believe had done something to, had you done it or were you going to do it to cauterize the wound?
I believe she had already done it.
Okay, because so what we see is this moment where Vale, you're coming to in intense pain, coming out of this vision, and Brilinya and perhaps Squalu, having been so close to this, and Vale yourself, the wall, blood is everywhere from when you pulled your arm out before Brilinya could stop it. You've lost a lot of blood. And Brilinya, you're sort of just lying there. She's kind of held on to you to staunch the bleeding and apply some healing. And Taliel, you're watching in horror as this just suddenly happened. What do you guys do?
I don't know. I'm just gonna keep laying there and bleeding. You know, try not to pass out again. You know, just probably pale as all hell. Yeah. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, you had chosen to fail the Constitution saving throw and passed out. Taliel, what are you doing as you're watching the scene that has just unfolded over the last few seconds in front of you?
I think she's standing there in absolute shock because there's moments before we were trying to figure out how to get around this, and then all of a sudden all three of them just bolted, and she's I would say taken aback a little bit at what these three have just done or were willing to do. I don't think she's left the door. I guess I can't see it unless I had gone around the corner, right?
I believe you had just sort of gone around the corner as they had all darted around the corner, just in time to see this take place.
Yeah. I don't think I would have approached much, so I could maybe still have an eye on the door that closed behind us, or the one that we were trying to get through that was closed.
What about you, Qualu?
Qualu is trying his best to just assist this man's wound, but unfortunately, he doesn't really know what to do. And Berlini's kind of got it covered with her healing magic. So I think he'll kind of wait, keeping an eye on things. We're kind of just waiting for Vale to come to so he can allow us passage out of the room, to be so blunt.
Brilinya, Vale, now less one arm, his blood covering the side of your face, soaking the front of your robes. You've sort of laid or sat down on the floor hastily as he collapsed. Vale sort of haphazardly, his upper torso lying in your lap as you've applied this initial healing magic to sort of stop the bleeding. His breathing is coming in shallow, ragged breaths, and he seems to be unconscious. What are you doing?
I think that Brilinya she doesn't even notice the blood on her face or hands or her clothing. She is hyper focused on this injury, and she takes out some of the water skin that they have that they may have refilled at that waterfall, and she's pouring it sparingly, but just enough to be able to make sure that the wound is clean. And also she's going to her forearm, the mithril underneath her forearms are glowing this brilliant light that makes it so that the area that she's working in is quite visible, and she is going to cast 2 healing light to Vale, which is 9 points of healing. But she's trying to get this wound knit shut, closed, and hopefully free of infection. And she then begins to take pieces of cloth, the cleanest that she can find, either like from her own clothes or from other pieces of fabric that she has with her in her pack, and she is going to work to bind and cover the stump that is now Vale's arm.
Give me a medicine check, and I'm going to say do it at advantage.
Okay. That's a 19.
So as you are carefully cleaning this wound, and it's not pretty, though, as far as wounds go, the flesh and bone and muscle tissue, everything you see, it's a perfectly clean cut. There's no jagged bone. There's no ragged flesh. Whatever this is in this mouth of this green devil face that he shoved his arm into, it's just gone. And that's why there was so much bleeding, you can see, because everything was just left open. As you start cleaning off the wound and you begin applying, as you're doing this, you're funneling this healing magic through it. You see that this healing is enough to close off the major blood vessels and veins, capping them off. You see bone knit itself over the exposed marrow. You see flesh beginning to form in tattered ribbons. Not tattered, rather, but almost like thin webbing of flesh beginning to rapidly knit itself to cover this wound. And it looks like you've put in a bit of accelerated healing to it. The bleeding has stopped, and you're able to apply these dressings carefully over the stump of the arm and sort of wrap them around the edges and secure them in a way that this area is protected. Vale, I would say that during this is sort of when you were having that vision from Ubtao, and whether or not you remember what he said, I guess that's dependent on whether or not you remember what he said to you. But you sort of hear that voice echoing as he said, "This is gonna hurt like a son of a bitch," and then he just sort of touched you on your forehead. And you awake to see Brilinya's face very close to yours, within a couple feet, as she's leaning over and just finishing sort of tying off these wrappings. You are lying prone, being tended to. And you can see Qualu sort of just kind of watching nearby at the edge of the light. And you don't see Taliel.
Yeah, I think my eyes would flutter open for a bit, and just pain takes over, and just trying to grit past it. You know, is it done?
I think Brilinya is not even looking at you or anything. She's still, her eyes are focused on this wound, but she gives this nod in acknowledgement that she's heard you. Just, we're going to put it around your arm. Keep it up and try not to move it.
All right. Well, gonna have to get out of here. I'll probably try and sit up, and I would probably be extremely shaky at first, like all the blood just kind of rushing out of my head at first. So it'd probably be very dizzy, and just kind of takes me a little bit of a struggle, but I'll get up.
I
I
think
think
would look to Kawalu to kind of.
I think, yeah, for a moment you're sort of struggling because you're trying to reach out with this arm that's no longer there. Just by instinct, you want to push up, and you sort of kind of fall to the side just a little bit for a moment. You try to even trying to reach up, maybe to sort of seek assistance from Brilinya or somebody, and you find yourself involuntarily reaching with an arm that's not there. But yeah, it's initially the pain is there, and there's the dizziness, but ultimately there's no mechanical disadvantages at this point other than what we talked about, which is I think we did this off stream, but we determined that Vale was in fact right-handed. So any weapon attacks you make with your left hand will be at disadvantage.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, so I mean, eventually I stand up and say, well, right, well, I'm tired of being in this room, this maze, whatever it is. We should probably go. It's too bad. I like that arm. I was quite attached to it.
And with that, you realize Vale's probably going to be okay. For now.
Till I get torn in half by something big and scary.
Taliel, you hear and see Vale's voice and see him as he's standing up, and a little wobbly at first, but he's up, and you guys know where the door is, and you know what you have to do.
Yeah, I think Taliel would get out of the way, like give them space as Vale comes closer and comes around the corner towards the door. Just kind of staring at him, trying to read his face and what they just did here.
All right, well...
No, go ahead.
No, it's okay.
I was just going to ask you how you reacted to that, so please, go on.
No. I don't think I'd really react with anything. I think I would just look and kind of just nod and just walk towards the door with the image. And I would just kind of hold up my stump.
You stand in front of the door, holding up your severed right arm, mimicking the painted figure there. The door slides down, receding into the floor, revealing a 5-foot wide passageway with a set of stairs descending down about 25 feet and opening into a slightly wider hallway. Are you heading down, or are you waiting for somebody else to take the lead?
Taliel, I'll go first. And she would carefully pass in front of Vale, trying to keep as much space between her and him as possible at this trying not to touch him. And she would go down the stairs. With this case, she'd have her longbow out and readied.
All right, who's going after Taliel?
I will.
Then
I'll go last.
Okay, I'll go third.
you carefully make your way down this narrow stairway. When you get to the bottom, you find that it opens into this 10-foot wide hallway that is about 45 feet long, extending primarily to the west. In that direction, you see the open area with the 4 massive 4-armed gargoyle statues that you had seen from above. This is the hallway you had seen that went to the east from when you entered this level. Immediately to your right, you see another one of these green devil faces on the wall.
Does it look... does it have like the black void maw like the other one had in the previous room?
It does not.
Okay, Taliel is slightly less discomfited by seeing that, but
you do notice that the halls on either side of this hallway, now that you've stepped into it, you look at this green devil face. You're looking particularly at this north wall that extends this 45 feet. And the entire wall is painted in murals depicting faceless humanoid figures doubled over in pain, clutching at their heads, grabbing at their ears. Some of them, they appear to have their entrails spilling out. They're trying to push them back in. Others look as if they're trying to hold a severed head on. One is holding its own severed arm and seems to be just looking around for help, as below them they all trod on the dead bodies of even more. All of this depicted in paint on this wall.
that's pleasant.
I mean, you have to admire the craftsmanship.
Yeah. So Taliel will go to the middle of that hall. Like, so she's not close to the north wall or that south wall, but like straight in the middle. And we'll go with I think she's going to kind of go sideways down the hall almost, so that she can keep an eye on the mask behind her on the wall and the room ahead where the gargoyles. And she's going to go about 10 feet and just kind of wait for a bit.
All right, give me an investigation check or a perception check at advantage.
Ooh. So that'll be perception, and that'll be 23.
As you come out and make room for the others, and you sort of position yourself so you can see the mural, you can see the mask, you can see all around as much as possible. You look back to see Qualu coming into this area. You hear the others coming behind them. And as you're looking back, something catches your eye on the mural. You almost didn't notice it because where the figure that's painted with the severed arm is, right where the arm is severed, there's a line, a vertical line running through the wall. From floor to ceiling. It's very subtle, but the paint has been cracked. And you notice that 5 feet further to the west, a similar vertical line runs parallel. It's very thin, but the paint is also cracked here.
I think Taliel would immediately head towards that 5-foot chunk of wall. I think she'd press on it. Just the obvious, let's push it. And if that does nothing, then she's going to start investigating and searching this part a little bit further.
You push on this section of the wall, and as you press in, and at this point, the rest of you are coming in. Vale, you're actually seeing the last one you come in just as Taliel sort of stepping towards it. She puts her hands up, and you see the depictions on this wall, and you see one that's very similar, or at least evocative of your own situation. Somebody with a severed arm, and Taliel just sort of pushes on the wall, and it pushes in about 2 inches, and then it goes and slides into a pocket to the left, revealing a room on the other side. What you see immediately as you open this room, waves of heat come blasting out of this cramped 10-foot by 10-foot room. The walls you can see are scribed. There's actually illumination in there. And you see in the flickering flames of a red candle that burns in an iron sconce on the north wall. That happens to be held by a human skeleton embedded in the wall. The walls of this room have relief carvings showing volcanoes erupting, setting cities ablaze. You can also see rows of tiny holes bored into the ceiling and floor.
The tiny holes that are in the ceiling and the floor, they kind of like seem like a pattern, almost like like they're one above the other or whatever, not going into the room at this point.
They look like they're in neat rows, almost like you could connect the dots and form a grid pattern.
Yeah.
Sorry, you have the skeleton in the room. I think Brilinya is going to come up beside Taliel and look in. What was the skeleton? Was it holding anything? Sorry.
Yes, it is a human skeleton. And basically, you see it from the torso, like right around the waistline, up. It sort of seems to almost be emerging from the wall like it's embedded, but it holds its hands in front of itself, and it's holding an iron sconce with a red candle that burns. And you would notice that as the flame is flickering, this candle shows no signs of the wax melting down.
So Brilinya is going to look at Taliel. Perhaps this is the death to fire.
I believe you might be right, but I want to point out, and she'll point out all those holes. I am almost certain this room is trapped.
How does one kill fire? Fire does not have a beating heart that I can rip from its chest.
Blow it out.
You smother it.
Smother it. Perhaps if we keep down below the holes.
They're on both the ceiling and the floor, right, Jake?
Yep.
Ooh. Is there a small space on the other side?
What do you mean?
Is there a small space on the other side where there isn't holes by the skeleton? Like if someone were to press themselves up against that mural?
The mural, oh, you mean where the skeleton, oh yeah, sorry, where the relief carvings of the volcanoes?
Yeah, like
yeah,
if someone were to press themselves, is there like...
It's maybe 6 inches.
Oh, okay.
I mean, there's pretty much these small holes are everywhere. There's maybe 6 inches gap between them at most. I mean, you could do that, work along the edges till you got to the thing, the candle, if that were your intent.
I think Taliel would put out a hand before you, if you tried to step into the room. I think she would stop. Let me try something. And you've never. How far across is the room? Like
10 feet.
10 feet. Yeah. So, you've never seen her do any magic or anything before, but she's when she stops you, she starts to do an elvish incantation and some hand movements, and all of a sudden there's like this little, it's almost like a seed pod kind of leaf shape, but it's very vaporous, and it shoots out towards the candle
And immediately dissipates when it enters the room.
Oh, okay.
As soon as it enters the room, it goes into arcane dust.
Well, it's good to know that. Seems like magic's not going to work in this room.
What if we try throwing water onto it somehow from where we are?
Qualu is quite good at throwing, but Qualu gave my water to the man whose name Qualu has yet to forget.
Qualu didn't fill his water skin up when we left?
Perhaps Qualu might have, if Qualu was not so dumb-witted.
Well, you give the water.
You gave the actual water skin to the guy, so you don't have a water skin.
I think.
I think.
For a second, I was like, "Where is this waterfall? You guys are refilling." I'm like, "Duh, the engineer's chamber is right next to the magic waterfall."
We were, yeah. I think Brilinya's is almost empty. So,
yeah, Taliel's got one. Because you would have used yours for the cleaning. Taliel still has hers, so she'll pass that too.
Tan was the Omuan's name, by the way.
Oh, and I'm going to grab. I'm going to grab the water skin from Brilinya. I still have a few tricks up my sleeve, and I'm going to drink all the rest of the water because I'm a dick. However, I hold on to it, and just for a moment, I kind of close my eyes, and I can still feel this kind of searing pain in my hand. But as I concentrate, you can see the water skin slowly starting to fill up. And I'm casting create food and water, but I'm just creating the water in the water skin.
Okay.
If they didn't fill it up, I'll just cast it. So.
Did you do it? You're doing it out in the hallway.
Yes.
Okay. You drink a water skin full of water and magically refill the water skin.
And the water is clean, and it's never going to go bad. So it's chock full of preservatives. Probably,
Fluoride.
Water MSG. Oh, yeah. So there you go. Cool, because it was almost empty, right? You said that your water skin was almost.
Oh, yeah, she had used it to treat your wounds.
Yeah, so there you go.
Thank you. Well, perhaps we should try to throw this water now. Oh. It is like it's a reasonable distance, right?
It's 10 feet. Thinking... It's just a 10 foot by 10 foot room.
This is so scary.
I don't know why a 10 foot by 10 foot room in the tomb, in the level called Chambers of Horror, is frightening to you.
Someone just lost an arm, maybe.
That was a door.
Yeah, well, if a door does that.
Oh, well then.
So if Qualu takes the water skin and kind of pinches at like where the nozzle is, it kind of like just a really short burst, a quick burst, and like shoot the water out of the water skin and aim it at the candle.
Perfect.
Is that what you're gonna do?
Yeah, Qualu has no better idea.
All right, I'm gonna have you.
Qualu's best idea.
I'm going to have you make an attack roll.
Perfect.
And I'm going to have you use your strength because you're pressing down on the water skin to try to force it. But I'm going to have you do it at disadvantage.
Would you say that I am proficient in this?
I would say that you are not proficient
All
in
right.
spraying a water skin.
Well, you see on the docks, we had this game.
Remember, we also have domain die.
Oh, sure. Can I do a super crit? I'm kidding.
Super critic handle.
All right, so that's going to be a 15 with disadvantage.
With disadvantage.
Yeah.
All right. You shoot. You press in really hard. And for a moment, it's not quite enough. And so you sort of raise it up. And you just manage to hit the flame. And the candle immediately goes and is snuffed out. And all four of you are immediately teleported with a... Whoops. I had a toothpick in my mouth when I did that. It didn't work out so well. And you find yourself immediately in a 10-foot by 10-foot room that has no doors, no windows. It is 10 foot by 10 foot by 10 foot. This room, you immediately notice the transition. It smells moldy. The walls are damp and covered with living snails and oysters. You actually can see snails moving along. You see the oysters stuck to the wall and just sort of some of them opening and that sort of like proboscis tongue sticking out. And you see sculptural reliefs of tidal waves destroying coastal cities and ships. A merfolk skeleton is embedded in the east wall. And is clutching an iron sconce filled with a burning red candle. Suddenly, as soon as you notice this, you're in the room, lukewarm water begins to pour into the cell through rows of tiny holes in the 10-foot high ceiling. So it's basically raining salt water in this room. I would like to, for ease of tracking this, I would like to have you guys roll initiative. And this will determine the order in which you guys are going to act. Vale.
Hang on, bacon.
I also rolled bacon for my initiative roll.
Oh, cool. Okay, good. Thank God. I thought it was just me. So it was like,
no, because you have a higher dexterity, you can go first.
Well, I can guarantee. I only got a.
Thank you.
I only got.
Thank you to.
Four,
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's okay.
I was saying thank you to Fantasy Horizons who just cheered 500 bits.
1,500.
Wait, what? Oh, good Lord! I couldn't read it on the thing. 1,500 bits. That's even more. Thank you so much, Fantasy Horizons, a good friend of mine, an artist friend of a few of us, who does some amazing work. Check out Fantasy Horizons. That was a free plug for you, Dan. But thank you for the domain dice. That is going to push you guys up to from 10 to 13. So I'm going to fix this in this way. Oops. I never do this right. Turn that off. Turn that on. There you go. You guys are now at 13 domain dice. So, what did you roll for your initiative, Vale? Missed what he said.
I rolled an 8.
Okay. Brilinya.
12.
Taliel.
20.
Qualu.
I got a 5.
All right, it will be Taliel, Brilinya, Vale, and Qualu. So you're in this room. The water is pouring. in and is beginning to, it's standing. As it's falling, you can see it's not draining anywhere. What are you going to do, Taliel?
Okay, I need a quick, recap on the description. You said that there was something in this room that had a candle
Yes,
as well?
the room is 10 feet by 10 feet by 10 feet. All along the walls, there are living snails and oysters embedded in the wall, sticking to the wall, snails crawling across the walls. In the ceiling, there are neat little rows of holes through which it is now raining salt water. On the easternmost wall, embedded amongst a mural of that depicts relief sculptures of tidal waves destroying coastal cities, a merman's or merfolk skeleton is sticking out, and it is holding an iron sconce with a lit red candle flickering.
Is it out? It must be outside of the water that's falling from the ceiling. Like it's not falling on the candle.
It does not appear to be affecting the candle.
Taliel is going to turn to Brilinya real quick. What was the rest of that saying on the plaque? It was death to fire, dine or drown?
Dine or drown, then precious air, and then falling sand. I have a feeling that each of these rooms seems like one of the hints. This one is water, so it must be dine or drown.
Yeah, so Taliel's going to grab a snail. Pop it in her mouth and start chewing on it.
As soon as you pop this snail in your mouth, you all watch. Taliel vanishes.
Oh, yeah.
Brilinya, it's your turn.
Seeing that that's how they got out of the last room, Brilinya is going to follow suit and eat a snail and not one of the oysters.
Vanishes. Vale. Eating pancakes and bacon won't save you here.
You know what?
Apparently it's escargot.
I'm going to look at the oysters.
Or clams. Or oysters.
Yeah, I'm going to look at the oysters and then think better of it because it's probably not a good idea. So I'll grab a snail and crunch it down.
If we're going to go to hell, let's go to hell together.
Exactly.
Gualo, you're left alone in this room as the others have quickly grabbed snails, apparently shell and all, and are crunching away on them.
Qualo's like,
oh no, I sucked mine out like a basically like a.
He may only have one arm, but he hasn't lost his dignity.
Qualo is sick to the gut. Snails are his least favorite food from Port Nyanzaru. His mother forced him to eat them as a child, and he never could get over the taste. And he's just like, he's looking at these oysters. Oh, Qualo, no. Qualo, yes. Qualo, no. And he's having a battle with himself over these two. As he has a whole flashbacks of these nasty snail dishes they used to eat. And so he'll hover over the oyster. No, Qualo must do this. And he'll stomach a snail for his friends.
All right. The room, as quickly as it was filled, is now emptied of these adventurers. And you all find yourself quickly popping in one after the other as these all happen seconds away from each other. You immediately, let me just double check. I want to make sure you're in the right room. Or make sure I'm reading the description of the right room, which I almost didn't. You find yourself once again teleported into another 10-foot cubic room. a candle on the east wall burning. This room, the walls of this stone cell are covered with reliefs showing desert sands swallowing the ruins of a civilization. A bas relief of a robed Medusa dominates one wall. It wears a stone necklace with an obsidian pendant and clutches an iron sconce with a burning red candle in it. As soon as you enter this room, sand begins to fall from tiny holes bored into the 10-foot-high ceiling. And you all feel and hear somewhere very close beneath your feet a rumbling sound. Everybody make me a... Well, what's everybody's perception? Does anybody have a perception that's under... under 10? I think everybody's passive is over 10, right? Yeah. As you pop into the room and you quickly take this in, you notice that running east to west in the center of this room is a seam in the stone floor. We're still in the same initiative order. Taliel, you've been here about a handful of seconds longer than everybody else. Maybe 10 to 15 seconds longer. The sand is already in your hair, cascading over your shoulders. What are you doing?
Panicking, I think. Falling sand. So there's a seam you said on the floor that's rapidly filling up with sand, I'm assuming?
Mm-hmm. The floor is beginning to fill. It's already covering most of the floor. That's partly why you were able to see the seam so easily, is that's the last thing to sort of begin to fill.
Okay, and so there's a Medusa relief, you said?
Yes, there is a relief carving of a Medusa on the east wall holding a red candle.
And what was that thing about the pendant? There was a...
the bas relief of the robed Medusa dominates the eastern wall. It wears a stone necklace with an obsidian pendant and clutches an iron sconce with a burning red candle in it.
Is the obsidian pendant like part of the relief, or is it actually external to the stone?
Give me an investigation check.
That'll be a 16.
As you move over quickly and look at this sculpture, you notice two things. One, the entire carving of the Medusa has a seam around it. Two, the pendant that she wears also has a seam around it. It appears to be some sort of a button.
I'm going to push the button.
It's not pushing in. It gives a fraction of an inch, but something is blocking it.
If I have time, I'm going to push on the Medusa, the whole relief.
It doesn't budge.
Okay.
So far, this has happened within a couple seconds. You've used your object interaction, more or less. You still have action, etc. If you want to try to actually... That was going to sound really snarky the way I was going to say it. If you want to try to actually do something... I don't mean it to sound that way. But if you wanted to do something other than a basic object interaction.
I'm going to turn, because I think at this point probably Brilinya has probably poofed into the room, and I'm going to tell her that there might be a door here, that there's a button, but I can't press it. Do you have any ideas?
All right, Brilinya.
This one seems quite a bit harder than the last one was down or drowned. This one, it's just a descriptor of what is happening, which isn't the best.
Well, who finds descriptors very helpful?
There's about an inch of sand on the floor now. An inch
so
and a half, actually.
Brilinya is going to go over to the Medusa next to Taliel and inspect this button. And you said it was stuck, like
It gives just a little bit when Taliel pressed on it, but it doesn't seem to actually push in.
perhaps there's something blocking it.
Yeah, like there's something else.
Give me an investigation check, Brilinya.
Okay. Oh, that's not good. It's a 1.
No ideas.
Yeah.
Do we snuff the candle? I don't know if we want to do that.
It wasn't. The clue in the first room was death to fire. I don't think that we would need to snuff the. But maybe I'm not sure. I think it has something to do with this button. Brilinya wants to if she can, could she take something? I don't think she has anything that's kind of like flat edged, like a dagger or something thin.
You
Yeah.
lost all your metal stuff.
I did.
And
Yes.
You did.
traps, so unless you have like a
Brilinya-
giant fingernail. I don't think you have.
Brilinya has one of my daggers, though, because I gave her one of my daggers. Yeah.
If you have a
But-
dagger, you can attempt to use your action to finagle the switch somehow. What I need you to do is you're going to give me a sleight of hand check at disadvantage.
Okay. Uh, 17. Sorry, not. Nope, disadvantage. 15.
You're moving your dagger around inside and sort of quickly working it around the edge, and you're sort of levering against it, and you feel it sort of catch on something, and for a moment you think, if I had something like thieves' tools, and then ping, the tip of your dagger breaks off.
But
But
I think Brilinya would say that maybe these can get popped open by someone who is more skilled in that than I am.
all right, Vale. All around you now at this point, actually, there's about 4.5 inches of sand. All around you, you hear this constant shh of falling sand, and you hear that rumbling sound deep and bassy below your feet. What are you going to do, Vale?
Can I reach the candle?
I mean, yeah, it's a 10-foot by 10-foot room.
Okay, but I mean, like the candle's not like 9 feet off the
No.
ground or anything.
No. Nope, you can
Probably like around head height.
reach
give
the
or take.
candle.
Okay. I'll walk over to the candle and blow it out.
You blow out the candle, and immediately the room is plunged into darkness.
Right. Well, I mean, it seemed like a good idea at the time.
Remind me, do all of you have dark vision?
Yes.
Okay. So there's this moment of transition as you have to shift. I will say you can all now barely see because there is no light source whatsoever. Your dark vision, everything would be very dim light. So any perception checks or anything like that is going to be at disadvantage.
I mean, really, I thought we just had to,
So that's an object interaction. Anything else you want to try to do, Vale?
I don't know. Hide my shame. Is that an action? Is that a bonus action?
Jake, I have the ghost
a stealth.
lantern still on my person. Does that shed light?
You notice as you sort of reach toward it, where is it, in your pack or on your side, or?
It would be on my side.
You notice that it's not casting off any illumination whatsoever.
Ooh, okay.
Anything else you're going to try to do, Vale?
No.
Qualu.
I think I've done enough.
Qualu says, you turned off the lights. But he wouldn't say something so anachronistically. He'd be like, damn it, we have no light now. Qualu's like down, kind of buckled on all fours. Qualu was determined that the falling sand is obscuring something on the floor. So he's kind of like trying to be scooping away these inches upon inches of sand, trying to find anything on the stonework at our feet to see if there's any kind of like clues or buttons or anything like that.
All right,
So
give me an
he's gonna do
investigation check.
Yeah. Disadvantage from the low light, you said? So
Absolutely.
it's going to be a whopping 3.
The sand is falling at such a rate as you move it away, it just immediately is filling it back up. And by the time you're done, this room already has 6 inches of sand in it. It seems to be falling at a rate of about 6 inches. All of you make a perception check. This is not at disadvantage because it does not rely on sight.
23.
I got a nat 20, so that'll be a total of 26.
I actually got a 21.
Vale?
Sorry, I got a 17.
All of you, as the sand begins filling, you feel like the floor sags just slightly. It suddenly just kind of goes as the weight of the sand is pressing on it. The floor is not solid and appears to be flexing. It is now Taliel's turn. What would you like to do?
Oh dear, we're going to fall. There is nothing else on the walls besides this Medusa relief.
Correct.
And then now burnt out candle. Wow. I think I'm going to spend the time to relight the candle so that we can at least see stuff better.
How are you relighting the candle?
I have a tinderbox.
Okay. Oh, hold on. I just unplugged my headphones. There we go. Yeah, so there's a as the room is suddenly hit with bright flashes of light, and then Taliel reignites the candle. And you can all now see there's about, at this point, about 7.5 inches of sand. It's getting difficult to walk around. It's a small enough area, it doesn't impede you that much. But it is difficult walking in the sand as it's constantly shifting under your feet.
And if I have time, I'd like to try to rotate the pendant.
Sure. You reach out and try to move it, and it doesn't move. It has a very subtle sort of, just a little bit of play to it. So you know this is a button. You know this thing should be moving, but something is preventing it from moving. Brilinya.
the sagging that we noticed, is it everywhere in the room, or does it sag in particular in one spot?
Say it again.
Does the floor sag more so in one spot, like the center or something, or is it kind of just sagging in general?
Give me a perception check.
I'll
allow an investigation check, actually, because you're deliberately trying to determine this.
14.
You can just sort of make out that because of the sand, the way it's falling, and particularly as you glance over, because that seam ran east to west, and as you sort of look along where the seam was, you see on the east wall where the Medusa is that the sand has a very subtle downward tilt towards the center of the room. It appears to be sagging inward towards that seam.
So I think Brilinya would kind of say, she would say, I think everyone should get against a wall away from the center, and she would point out this saggy area. I don't think we want to go down there.
Well, at this point, there is now 9 inches of sand filling the floor below. Your feet are covered. You have to sort of lift them to pull yourself up out of the sand, and it's shifting under your feet. You're standing in front of the mural where you had extinguished the candle. What would you like to do?
I'm going to listen to Brilinya, and I'll just get flat against the wall away from that sagging area.
All right. Qualu. There's now 10.5 inches of sand in the room.
Qualu will hoist himself out from being buried in the sand. As he kind of like claims and hooks his big hands into any kind of seams of the stonework of a wall. He wants to try and climb up and, I don't know, like block with his body. Because imagine if it's like, what, a foot and a half now, at least, of sand. He could probably press with his arms and his elbows.
There's 10.5 inches on the floor.
Oh, 10.5, excuse me. Okay, that's about a foot. So, can he, if he were to climb on top of the sand, could he like reach where the sand's coming out of with his hands?
How tall are you?
He's a big orc. Let's see. What's the size of an orc or a half orc in 5e? Half orc size.
They're roughly human size.
Yeah.
It's still just out of reach by about a foot. You're gonna have maybe an 8-foot reach, at most, 7.5 feet, and it's 10-foot ceilings. So did you move to the edge like the others, or did you stay in the middle?
Well, he was using most of his movement to get out of the sand, but if it's only 1 foot of sand, then it's just
it's difficult terrain in here, so it's just half movement, and it's only a 10-foot room.
I think he'll try to just kind of maneuver the best he can to the edge.
Qualu, just as you get to the edge, you all hear this sort of. You still hear the of the sand and the. And suddenly you watch as all the sand below you goes. And I need everybody to make a dexterity saving throw.
Will be a 13 for me.
Actually, everybody will do so at advantage.
So that's a 17 for me.
Still a 13 for me.
Vale?
A 22.
24.
The center of the room collapses in on itself. Qualu, you're just moving towards the edge. Everybody else, you feel the shift as where you're standing, you either feel the shift as the floor sort of hinges under your feet, or as you drop about 6 inches and suddenly find yourself standing on a ledge that's only 6 inches wide. Qualu, the sand kicks out from under your feet, and you go tumbling down 10 feet, and you all watch as the sand is rapidly disappearing between 2 stone rollers. And I am about to roll the largest amount of dice I have ever rolled against a PC in a game. In each of my hands, I have 8 D10s. I will have to roll 8 of them one more time. I'm rolling 24 D10.
Look,
I'd like to activate my barbarian rage.
Qualu.
I'm not a barbarian.
Qualu, you have 134 hit points right now.
Hey, just for a joke,
something.
just for a joke, wait till he rolls it all, then use some domain dice and make him roll it all again.
Can you make that a super crit, Jake, please?
All right,
Yeah,
I'm rolling the first.
You have temporary hit points from me.
Yes,
Yeah,
there's a
we have
plus,
11
so you
hits.
technically have 145 hit points.
Mm-hmm.
I will just say the average damage on this is 132.
Okay, so
I'm
I got a
rolling.
50-50 chance.
The first 8 have landed. That is 17, 20, 21, 25, 35, 44, 49. Ooh, 59. 67. 75. 78. 83. 86. 95. 98. Last set of 8. 98. 108. 118. 128. 136. 140. Qualu, you all watch as Qualu drops down with the sand into these stone rollers and immediately begins getting crushed. You hear bones breaking. Blood is spraying out from his legs and up his torso as it sounds as though every bone in his body is breaking. But you also watch as the stone around him, the stone rollers, seem to be sort of struggling. It seems impossible to the three of you watching, as in a moment, Qualu is gone. And you now see 2 stone rollers spinning, crimson covering their surface.
It was
Qualu.
just a flesh wound.
Qualu, I am actually going to have you roll.
Ooh, for massive damage.
We're gonna roll System Shock on you.
Mm-hmm.
From the Dungeon Master's Guide. So roll me a D10.
D10, perfect. It's gonna be a 2 on the D10.
It's a 2.
It's a 2.
At the bottom of this pit, Qualu, you bleed out. But you are stable. However, Vale, Brilinya, and Taliel, you cannot see below you. Vale, Brilinya, and I'm going to say Taliel just because of something you did recently. I would like you all to make insight checks.
2. Brilinya is screaming Koalu's name. She is not paying any attention.
8. Taliel is right there with you, shrieking.
25.
Vale, it's almost as if you hadn't noticed this was gone. It's like when you are so used to hearing a certain sound, and then when it changes or it goes away, or if it's silence. If anybody remembers tube televisions, they had this weird sort of hum that was almost imperceptible, but you just knew that a television was on in the room. Since you've entered these chambers, that feeling has been gone. As soon as this trap door opened, you feel that sort of as your attunement to magic suddenly snaps back. You're the only one that's realized this, but the anti-magic field dissipated when these doors opened below you. You also noticed, because you're standing right next to it, a subtle near that stone pendant of the Medusa on the relief wall. You are all standing on the edge on a 6-foot ledge with the now bloody rollers below you. Brilinya is screaming at the top of her lungs in just hysterically. Taliel, it's your turn. What are you doing?
I'm pressing the button.
You press the button.
My tears are rolling down my face as I know Koalu could not have survived that. Like, who could have?
You press the button.
Yeah, I do.
You hear this sort of as the entire Medusa swings open like a door. But it only moves about an inch, popping loose. What are you going to do?
I'm going to push the Medusa.
Give me... No, you don't need to make a check. You push on the door, and you can feel that it seems to have some sort of spring-loaded hinges. As you press it open, you feel it pushing against you, but you are able to open it. You can see into the room beyond you. A room that is quite large, especially compared to what you were in just now. Do you go through it?
Can I tell if the door will close behind me?
Yes, you sense that if you let go of it, it will slam shut and probably latch.
Then I won't. I will wait for the other two to see if they can get through first before I let go of the door. So I'll just remain holding it open.
Brilinya, next to you, the door opens. Taliel's holding the door open. You see spinning rollers painted red with Koalu's blood spinning below you.
I really don't think that Brilinya would do anything. I think that she is absolutely stunned into shock and horror at this very sudden death. I don't think she's gonna move.
Connor, is that automatic or do you have to make a check?
I think it's like a reaction or something. When I take a bunch of damage, I can use my half orc ability to be fine. Well, not fine, but
Yeah,
go
to be fine. I just took
Let's see.
140. What was it? 141 points
So
or something
I
like that.
survived the damage with 5 hit points because of the temporary hit points that Brilinya gave me. But even if, for example, you had rolled max damage with that, my relentless endurance would.
But the system shock knocked you to 0, which would trigger that.
Oh, does it? Okay.
I will allow that.
Yeah.
I mean,
All right,
it's triggered if you drop to 0. So
yeah. Oh, it's only if damage reduces me to 0. Which is
that's damage.
Is it? Okay.
You took 140 plus points of damage.
All right.
I'm counting it. I'm saying that
cool.
it'll kick in. But do you have to make a roll or is it automatic?
Nope. It's just once per long rest.
Okay, because it makes a difference. That's why I needed to know that. Brilinya, are you going through the door, or are you just standing there screaming and staring?
I think she is silent right now.
So it's more like there was this initial scream of horror, and you're just now staring in horror. Okay.
I think Taliel would yell at you, Brilinya, get through before it gets you too. We can't do anything for him.
I am gonna roll because I think this would be the most horrifying thing anyone could ever see.
No doubt.
So I'm gonna roll to see if she snaps out of, and that is a 5. So I don't know.
She's not moving. Vale, Brilinya is frozen in place next to you. Taliel's yelling. Qualu appears to be gone. What are you going to do? There is now at your back. Taliel is right there holding the door open. Brilinya is right next to you in arm's length. Well, one of your arm's length.
Yeah, jump in the rollers. I just want to make you roll like 20, 40, 10 again. I think I'm just going to do it. Be like, you know what? We had a good run. Oh, wait. See, I'd go like this, but clearly I can't, so... I'm just going to, with my left arm, I'm going to grab Brilinya and tell her, we have to go now. And I'm just going to start pulling her towards the door. Because I've been looking at my spells, trying to figure out how the frickety frack I would get him out. And I have no idea.
Qualu.
I've got nothing.
You grab Brilinya, and you step into this area. Qualu. It's unimaginable the pain you feel. The only reason you're even alive right now is as your bulky half-orc body passed through this thing, you sort of jostled the rollers. You are laying underneath the still spinning rollers. Blood, your own blood, and sand is spilling down on top of you. You are in shock. You feel the pain, but you also don't feel the pain. Gritty, blood-caked sand covers almost your entire body. We see your eyes sort of struggling to stay open. You can feel underneath you. Sorry, you're 5 feet below the grinders. You're on an iron grate, and all of the sand is spilling through this grate. Just above the grate, off to your right, broken, split, bloodied, your right arm extends, and you see, inches away, a stone button in the wall. What are you gonna do?
So say there's a grate beneath me. Am I able to, with my dark vision, and these pulsing, I guess, shades of red is what I see now, because some orcish spirit inside me refuses to give up as I tried to pass through death, but nope, not today, apparently. My half-orc blood keeps me alive. This grate I see below me that I'm laying on, does it seem to have a bottom or an end? How big are the grates, the holes? Am I at risk of
The
falling
holes
through it?
are very small. It's a solid grate. There doesn't appear to be any hinges or anything on it. You don't appear to be under any danger of falling through it.
Are the holes big enough for like my arm to go through, or are they like
No,
tiny?
they're like an inch square.
Cool. All right. Qualu will drag himself across this grate. Just, I guess, like the one arm that really works still, I guess, will pull him over to the edge of the wall where this button is.
The button is mere inches from your finger.
He'll just like pull.
This is
Take
that
a breather. He'll take a second wind here to give himself a little bit of a chance to survive whatever dart traps are coming.
This is that moment
soul.
where the music is swelling. There's no reason Qualu should be alive. You can see only 2 of your fingers on your right hand are not broken. Your bones in many places are sticking through your skin. Multiple compound fractures. How much did you heal yourself?
I rolled a total of 20 on my short wind.
You
second wind.
tap into this ancient orcish spirit, and I imagine as you sort of, in part, slam your hand down on the side of the grate, and you sort of snap a dislocated bone, and you sort of, where 2 bones are misaligned, you snap them into place, and you dig in for that resolve. And with those 2 unbroken fingers, you stretch. You press in the button. Vale, Brilinya, and Taliel. As Vale is pulling Brilinya into the room, you hear behind you the rollers stop spinning. Qualu, you watch the rollers stop spinning, and they go recede into the walls, opening a passage above you back to the room. And Brilinya, as Vale is just starting to pull you out of the room, you see broken, bleeding, barely alive Qualu 10 feet below you. And that's where we're going to take a break. Okay, I cannot believe you survived that. I cannot believe it. That is the largest damage roll I have ever rolled against a player. I've never even seen a damage roll that high in a module. Not even from Dragon's Breath. I think the biggest Dragon Breath roll I've ever seen is like 20 D6 or something like that.
Even actually, the only thing that would be higher would be Meteor Swarm, and that's only in a just sheer amount of dice, because that's 40 D6.
Yeah,
which is just ridiculous.
Yeah. When you said the total of dice you're rolling and the average damage, was like, you know what? I really hope that you roll way above average, because the average damage wouldn't have downed me. And I'm like, come on. If you're going to make an instant kill trap, you got to be able to kill a 12.
Look, if I'm rolling that many dice, if there's an option to roll that many dice, I'm rolling the dice.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, This ought to be interesting. We're going to go ahead and we are going to take a 10-minute break. Let me get to the chrono here. All right. So, thank you to everybody who's tuned in so far. Hope you're enjoying the game. We will be back in about 10 minutes to see what room they have opened up into and how they're going to deal with broken Qualu. So we will see you on the other side of this break. And we're back. So, yeah, that was quite a harrowing situation. Qualu being put through the stone rollers, quite literally, taking 142 points of bludgeoning damage, and getting knocked unconscious. Only his half-orc resolve is what kept him alive long enough to push the button, releasing the trap, and allowing the others to see his broken and bloody body down below. We decided that because of the severity of the injuries, and because I rolled 3 fistfuls of dice, we are going to have Qualu roll 3 times on the lingering injury chart to determine the extent of his wounds. So, Qualu, go ahead and roll that first D20.
It's a 19.
You're gonna have a minor scar.
Oh.
All
right.
No adverse effects. Magical
Perfect.
healing of 6 level or higher, such as a heal or regenerate, can remove the scar. Roll another D20.
Oh, well, perfectly fitting. That's a natural 1.
One of your eyes is damaged beyond repair.
Okay.
You have disadvantage on all wisdom perception checks that rely on sight and any ranged attack rolls.
Perfect. Okay.
Regenerate magic such as the regenerate spell could restore the lost eye. Now your third roll.
Off the table. That's going to be a 4.
You also, assuming you get the healing you need, will have a permanent limp. Well, semi-permanent limp. Your speed on foot will be reduced by 5 feet. You have to make a DC 10 dexterity saving throw after using a dash action or fall prone. But magical healing can remove that. So your most severe effect of this, after healing, will be permanent loss of an eye and a minor scar. However, that's far from your mind at this moment. As Brilinya, you're looking down in this pit, 10 feet below you. You see the broken body of Qualu. You see one side of his head is actually partially smashed in, where the entire... Let's actually... Connor, roll me a D6.
It's a 6.
That is even, so your left eye, the left side of his head, the entire orbital socket around the eye is completely shattered. His cheekbone is shattered, and you can see that there's just nothing left of the eye on that side of his head. He's broken in more ways than you could possibly imagine, yet you see him there below you. We are out of initiative order. How would you like to proceed?
Brilinya, I imagine she's just gonna jump down. I don't know how far down it is, but I don't think she cares. She is going to jump down.
Give me an athletics or acrobatics check.
Okay. Ooh, 10.
All right, that's enough. You sort of half jump, half slide, and just sort of almost using that, what is now a trap door, like a ramp. Quickly, you get down next to Qualu.
I imagine that she's going to immediately lean down and listen. If he's not moving, she's going to listen for any kind of breathing or life, unless Qualu is moving.
You could, as you get down there, you see that he is just barely moving. You kind of catch this ragged sort of because of a punctured lung. There's wheezing. I mean,
yeah.
I could go on and on, tapping into every medical show I've ever seen, every war movie I've ever seen, and still barely graze the surface.
I imagine he looks more like meat than person right now. I think it's very interesting. Brilinya throws up at a yucca beetle and almost at eating the gross snail or an eye stalk, but seeing this level of gore, her mind goes instantly hyper focused. She looks immediately for the worst damage to start with. Meanwhile, she is telling Qualu, "I'm so sorry. This is going to hurt a lot." And I imagine she is going to begin her arms begin to glow, lighting up this pit, and she is going to begin taking her hands and almost like molding them over Qualu's just jagged body parts, the bones, and kind of realigning them as she goes along, almost following these imaginary lines of where his limbs and body should be, and realigning them. And because of these injuries, this isn't just like a simple healing stuff knitting together, which might not hurt as much. This is the literal taking bone pieces and unshattering them and putting them back into place. So I imagine that it almost feels like Qualu's going through the meat grinder a second time around, as Brilinya is literally piecing him together. And I have this image in my mind of like the camera looking at his blood dripping down this grate, and then you see the light from Brilinya's arms, and slowly the blood begins to pool and drip back up, almost as if it's like in reverse, starting to go back towards his body.
Qualu makes a howl that just rocks the earth from all the pain of this healing magic that would probably signify to anyone within the near vicinity that Qualu is very much alive and in a lot of suffering right now.
Make me a Constitution saving throw at disadvantage.
Perfect. That's going to be that's actually pretty good. 15 plus whatever my save is. It'll be a 22.
Okay. You maintain consciousness and you do not take any psychic damage from this, but it doesn't lessen the intensity of it.
So if you'll allow it, Jake, I think she's going to use 2 Cure Wound spell slots as well as 5 of her healing, what is it called? Healing Light ability.
You are a celestial, correct?
Yes.
First, I'll begin the ability. It's 1 plus your body. As a bonus action, you can heal 1 creature within 60 feet. Maximum number of dice you can spending dice from the pool. Okay. Yeah, I'll allow it. How many total? What's in your dice pool?
So it's going. Total, it's going to be 10d8 and 5d6.
Okay. I'm gonna say that this is gonna take some time because of the severity of his wounds and the level of magic you're doing. I'm not gonna make you make any mechanical rolls because you're doing everything within the abilities of your character. but it is going to take it's going to take a half hour at least, as you have just immediately gone into triage mode, using every ounce of skill you learned, tapping into every lesson you learned when you were with the Weeping Friars, and everything you've learned since, as your magical ability has grown since you've been away from them, and has grown even more since you eliminated Brother Mateus, who seemed to have amplified your power in what was torture with these mithril arms. Vale and Taliel, you just see nothing but brilliant, radiant light, so bright that you can barely look into this pit as Brilinya is healing. You can catch glimpses as you squint and just see that she's doing work. And the minutes roll by, Qualu howling and begins to subside a bit, but you hear the sounds. Every once in a while you hear these cracking sounds that reverberate like Vale, you would, in Brilinya, would be probably the only ones that recognize this. They sound like Gunslinger Cole's arcane cannon firing off, reverberating in this small space as bones are suddenly snapping back together. Taliel, as the sound is spilling out of this chamber below, you hear a sound behind you in the room that you're in. It sounds to you as if a company of soldiers has just snapped to attention. You look into the room that you've had your back to, and radiant light is spilling into this room. This room is 60 feet from where you're standing to the far side. It's also 60 feet north to south, but it is shaped like a plus sign. Immediately at your feet, you're not quite standing in it, but you're near it, is a bunch of broken pottery all over the floor. All throughout this room, there are nearly, what appears to be nearly 50 terracotta soldiers. All of them kneeling. And as you hear this sound, you turn in time to see as these figures all stand. They turn and look in your direction. And you watch as they reach over and they unsheath their sword 3 inches. And then they just stare at you. In the center of this room is... Hold on, I just clicked away from it. 1 second. In the center of this room is a single coffin, and you can just make out in the light spilling through that on the lid of this coffin is painted a leopard with serpents rising out of its shoulders. Every time Qualu made a sound, screaming from the other room, the soldiers begin pulling their swords further out of their sheath. By the time Brilinya is finished with her with her healing process of Qualu, these terracotta warriors have their swords halfway out of their scabbards. But they have made no other motion. How much do you end up healing Qualu?
I heal him a total of 90 hit points.
19 hit points. Jeez, all that dice, 19 hit points.
Despite your best efforts,
9-0.
you are not able to save the left eye. You are able to fix the bones around it, but you can only get scar tissue to form. And this particular magical healing did not fix your limp. You will have this limp initially coming out of this healing. And you heal. I'm going to say that you heal in lieu of being able to replace his eye. You cause skin and bone to cover the eye. And it leaves mostly that light green skin covered hue of his half-orc skin over what was once the eye socket. The eyebrow appears to be a bit jagged, but other than that, it leaves a minor scar.
Brilinya, I think afterwards, she sits back. She is exhausted after spending that, and she just kind of leans back on her heels. I've done as much as I could.
Qualu's like holding his hand up, and it doesn't ache like, a dead man's hand aches. He'd like feel this eye that's gone because you can only see out of the one now, and feel just the solid skin there instead of like a hole where an eye would be. This is a miracle, Qualu would say to you. I can never thank you enough.
You have saved us enough times. I'm only returning the favor. Now let's get out and I worry about the others.
Qualu will get up, I guess, and he'll like just fall over under the weight. His leg doesn't support him. He'll get up again, leaning on the wall for. I think there's probably a wall in here somewhere.
Yeah.
He'll lean on the wall for support to get him onto his feet, and he'll try and find what remains of his equipment, I guess, to see if if his gear's all right and he didn't get too munched up. If he has that goat staff still, he'll use it as a walking stick to prop himself up.
I'm going to say that your pack and any mundane gear was destroyed.
Good thing I gave the food to that guy, huh?
Because it's magical, your staff managed to survive these rollers. Also your Yikawa would have survived. Being magical. And they may have actually accounted for why the rollers seem to skip track when you were tumbling through. It could be that these magical items, in fact, jumbling up the rollers contributed to your ultimate survival. But yeah, anything you had in your gear that was in your pack, and any mundane gear is crushed or ripped to shreds.
All right, perfect. My inventory has now been emptied out on D&D Beyond, beyond my few magic items. Qualu will look around to these kind of the structure that surrounds him. And I imagine his arms are probably the least damaged bit of his body at this point now, thanks to the restorative magic. He'll try to find at least a way up to climb out of this thing.
There's no mechanical disadvantage, but your entire body feels as if you just worked out for like 6 hours in the gym. The Port Nine Zaru Gold's Gym on 14th and Grung Avenue.
Oh, I don't go to that one. That one's full of
Grungs?
the unsavory dock workers. No, I go to the other one. It's a bit more reclusive.
Oh, you go to the Uptown Golds?
Yeah.
with a little bit of help, Brilinya and Qualu, you managed to get pulled up out of the, or pull yourselves up out of the pit, and you now see Taliel still. It hasn't taken you any extra effort to hold this door open. You just know once you let go of it, it's going to slam shut. Vale, what about you during all of this, dealing with your own phantom limb? What would you have been doing during this healing ritual for the last half hour?
I was trying to see if maybe I could get down there to help, but then realizing that, well, I can aid in some ways. I don't have the ability to get down there. I don't even know if I'd be able to go back up. So I mean, I think I'd be taking the loss of an arm kind of not hard, but I think maybe after all the shock of it is worn off, like I think I'd be, realizing that I'm not invincible. You know, kind of got me a little bit, but I'm keeping that all inside because that's,
Okay. Taliel, also during this time, from your vantage point, you've had some time to sort of get a view of what this room looks like. And just to aid the players a bit here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to send you in our chat what this looks like. I don't have a way yet to share this. Oops, that's the wrong group. You see that before I send this, there is the sarcophagus in the center of the room. There is the terracotta warriors arrayed around the room, so that crisscrossing east to west and north to south, with the sarcophagus as a center point, the floor is littered with broken pottery. On the north, east, and south central walls, there are glowing runes etched into the floor in the size roughly of a circle. And now, there you go. There's the map in our chat. So, how would you like to proceed? All of those orange circles with stars are the terracotta warriors. So there's a total of 48 terracotta warriors in this room. All of them look like ancient Omuan tribal warriors.
I think as they come up and are kind of reunited, Taliel has been motioning you guys to be quiet as much as possible. And she's going to whisper that any noise causes the terracotta warriors to animate.
And yeah, Brilinya, I think, would come up right next and whisper as quietly as she can, maybe right into Taliel's ear. Should we approach quietly then?
Absolutely. You wouldn't happen to have like silence or some way to magically keep us quiet?
Brilinya just shakes her head. Man, I got so excited I saw invisibility on my thing, but that's because of the Wand of Wonder, so never mind. She just kind of sadly shakes her head. Though it might have been useful at my school or at in my studies, it never came up. I'm sorry. But I feel like I can be pretty sneaky, and you seem deft of foot yourself.
And Jake, sorry, you said 2 of the symbols were glowing?
All 3 of the symbols are glowing.
All 3. And we're at one of them?
No, you
Or
are
we're at
on the west wall.
Okay.
And there is no symbol there.
Is there any space between the warriors? Like to walk between them?
So, if you wanted to attempt to maneuver through the warriors, you would be reduced to half speed. And you could not end your turn between 2 warriors. That means 10, 20, 30, 40. You need to have at least 45 feet of movement. Or excuse me, you need to have, at least. Is that right? 10, 20, 5, 10, 15, 20. Yes, you need to have at least 45 movement speed to be able to make it through moving between. And you will have to make a stealth check as you maneuver through them.
Perhaps we should inspect the coffin first.
Yeah, but we need to tread lightly. If these things react to noise, as you said, Taliel, then wait, I have an idea. I just need to consult the map first.
So you've got basically 30 feet to get to the coffin. The pottery shards themselves do not impose difficult terrain.
Well, I mean, I guess they would if you're trying to do it quietly.
No, you just have to make a stealth check.
Or I would like to cast a spell.
Sure.
Like to cast Misty Step. Misty Step right onto the right to the coffin. Sarcophagus.
All right.
That thing.
So you sort of begin to step forward and a mist shape is left behind and you appear next to the coffin. I need you to make a dexterity check, a stealth check at disadvantage, because you are appearing in pottery shards.
Oh no, I was going to do it like right on top of the sarcophagus.
Oh, on top of the sarcophagus?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I will allow that.
Sorry, I should have made that more clear.
Yeah, it's 30 feet to the top. So you suddenly, Vale vanishes in a mist and reappears. And there's just that moment of, but there's enough space as you stand on top of this. Okay, you're now on top of the sarcophagus in the middle of the room. What are you going to do?
I would like to examine the sarcophagus to see if there's some type of a clue to dealing with all of this.
Go ahead and give me a investigation check.
All right, then. Let's see what we got here. Okay. It's an 11.
So you can see, as you kind of kneel down and look around, it looks like this lid is not sealed. It looks like it could probably be removed. But obviously not while you're standing on it.
Obviously not. Okay. Do I notice if there's any kind of like strings or like small threads that look like if anyone tried to move this, it would set off some sort of a noise?
You didn't notice anything like that.
No. All right. Okay. Laying down on the sarcophagus, like laying down on the lid on my stomach, would I be able to kind of like pick up the shards and kind of move some out of the way so I can create enough space for me to stand on without making noise?
The sarcophagus is tall enough that it's very difficult for you to even reach the floor with your one arm.
Okay.
I'm going to say it. I mean, you're trying to reach, and without another arm to hold you up, you can't steady yourself enough to push off. You're at risk of falling down onto the shards.
Yeah, and I don't think we're going to play that game.
Your best bet, it looks like you could probably lower yourself into them and then attempt to move them.
Okay. So I think I'll do that.
I need a stealth check at disadvantage as you slide off the coffin into the broken pottery.
Yeah. Cool. That's an 8. So
you watch as Vale begins to carefully lower himself down, stepping, kind of reaching with his toes. And you catch yourself at the last second, but it's too late, Vale, as you realize, as you were beginning to slip down and your feet are about to plop down on these, you reach out with that phantom limb to try to steady yourself. And there's nothing there. And you drop the last 3 inches onto a piece of pottery. Instantly, 48 terracotta warriors pull out their swords. And next week, I will have you all roll for initiative. I'm not going to lie, there's a part of me that just wants to keep going and going and going. But I think that's a good place to stop for tonight. There's been a lot that's happened in this session. A lot of psychological trauma. And it looks like there might be more on deck for next week. So yeah, we will start next session next week in what you have already determined is Shagambi's tomb, the Commandant, which Vale, there's a part of you that recognized this is what the vision of Ubtao told you. He told you that you would be reunited with your spectral steed, that it was close at hand. And you're standing right next to Shagambi's tomb as these terracotta warriors, these ancient Omuan terracotta soldiers, draw their swords and prepare to attack these would-be tomb raiders. So, I would like to say a huge thank you to everybody that showed up tonight, that tuned in with us. And of course, a massive thank you to our friend Dan over at Fantasy Horizons. I'm going to give him another plug. If you look at my profile picture, that sort of version of me as an orc here on Twitch, that was painted by Dan at Fantasy Horizons. And I believe you can go to Dan, you can go ahead and plug, if you're still here, plug your website in the chat. I can't remember if it's your name or if it's Fantasy Horizons, but if you search for Fantasy Horizons or follow him on Instagram and Twitter, he's got some amazing artwork, just incredible. I've got more than one piece of his around my office here. Dan and I actually used to work together a few years ago. But thank you, Dan, for that cheer. Oh, wait. Dan messaged me and I'll put it in the chat. URL linking for you is disabled. But I will put that in the chat for people if you send that to me. In the meantime, thank you to everybody else who tuned in tonight to watch along with us. As always, we really appreciate you. I love seeing, even if I can't interact as much, I love seeing the chat activity taking place. And of course, a tremendous thank you to Mike, Kaeryn, Megan, and Connor. It's always a pleasure to play and attempt to kill your characters. We were talking as we were coming out of the break that it was the best situation to have Qualu be the one to get affected, though Brilinya may have been able to survive. Actually, Taliel would have survived as well with her trap resistances. Vale might have been the only one that would have been, possibly would have been completely screwed by that. I don't know how many hit points you have left. I guess
I would have. Oh, I would have been dead. If I went through that thing, I would have been dead.
So, yeah, I mean, yeah, and that trap does say that if you are reduced to 0 hit points through the trap, that you are turned into a bloody pulp, I believe it says. So yeah, Vale would have met his demise there. Just checking something. So I mentioned that we'd at the beginning of the stream that we'd have a couple of announcements. Okay, Dan fixed it in the chat, so it's dandingman.com without a space. So I can probably turn that into a clickable URL. I mean, I'm not lying when I say that I am a huge fan of Dan's work, and he does incredible work, as Megan can tell you as well. And actually, if you look, I think all of the Absolute Tabletop guys have their profile pictures set, or have had their profile pictures set as artwork that Dan has done of them. So check that out. So tomorrow night here at 8:30 p.m. Eastern will be the continuation of the All That Glitters, a Waterdeep Dragon Heist campaign run by Mr. Mike the Piper, featuring myself and Megan, along with Cassie and Dwight. This Tuesday, I will be found along with Connor, Kaeryn, and Megan over on the Dice on Ice channel on YouTube, playing in Megan's Curse of Strahd campaign. On Wednesday, this is the first Wednesday, so there is no Spire campaign on Wednesday. So nothing on Wednesday. On Thursday, you'll want to tune in as we return to the Dawnbringers campaign, Season 3. I believe it's episode 21. Things are getting pretty serious over there. Megan is a player in that, along with V, DM Scotty, Jeremy from Erasmus Expeditions, Ted from Nerdarchy, and we've had for the last couple weeks, and possibly returning this week, Dan Dillon, who's at Dan Dillon on Twitter, but also works with Wizards of the Coast and is a rules guru. So it's nice when you have a rules question to just glance at Dan's video in the overlay and just see if he's going or nodding in agreement. So you want to check that out. Friday night at 10 p.m. Eastern, Alan from Check for Traps, CFT RPG, running his amazing Curse of Strahd campaign as well. That happens right here on Mini Terrain Domain. And coming up on February 19th, which is a Wednesday, myself, Megan, and Kaeryn, along with Dwight and our friend Carrie, and Game Mastered, although they call it something different in Call of Cthulhu, don't they? Is it a keeper? Is that what they call it? The Game Master position. Alex from Critical Hit Publishing, Captain Grothnog, will be running the new module, Highway of Blood, that he and Ian Christensen just published through Critical Hit Publishing. They will be running us through that scenario, set in the 1970s, grindhouse style. It is going to be awesome, so you'll want to check that out. Again, thank you to everybody who tuned in tonight. Thank you just for being here. Make sure you hit that follow button somewhere up there. Turn notifications on to be notified whenever we go live. hit if you want to. We appreciate the subscriptions. They help the channel out. And also be sure to check out Mini Terrain Domain on YouTube, where you can catch VODs of the various games. And starting this coming Friday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern for 2 hours, most Friday nights, you will find me on YouTube doing a 2-hour live stream of crafting. That's right, I will be doing miniature painting, dungeon crafting, terrain building. This very first session, I will be showing you how I build my dice tower cores for all of the custom dice towers I do using hot glue, cardboard, and a little bit of crafting foam. So I would love to see you guys over there for that. With that, it is time to get out of here. We are going to end the stream the same way we end every stream. And you can say it with me if you want.
Meat grinder.
Now my arm.